Welcome back to Beyond Mortgage. I'm your host, Dan Trinidad, and I am so excited to talk to today's guest, Dale Vermillion. Dale is one of the most well-renowned mortgage trainers, speakers, and consultants in the country. He's trained over 1 million loan originators, representing over 500 lenders. His award-winning Mortgage Champion Sales Training is the industry's standard and is the official training program for Lending Tree University. In 2010, Dale wrote Navigating the Mortgage Maze, an in-depth guide for consumers on how to obtain the best mortgage financing possible. Welcome, Dale.
Dan, it's so nice to be here. Honored to join you. Thank you so much for inviting me.
Absolutely. Your reputation is definitely big. I've heard your name mentioned throughout the years in many different occasions, and I'm excited to finally be talking to you. So maybe you could share, the majority of our listeners are loan originators. Many of them are also real estate agents, and it's starting to grow into other fields, but the majority are loan officers. Maybe you could share a little bit with our guests on how you got tracking into the mortgage industry and specifically training.
Well, good. Probably the most important thing to start with for anybody who's listening, just to establish credibility, is that, when I hear things like 37 years in the business, my first mind goes to, this guy's old and he probably doesn't know anything anymore.
True.
Out of the field too long. I started in 1983 as a loan officer, and I originated for a year before I became a branch manager, and then ran 3 different branches where I was a producing manager of loan officers. I had up to 20 loan officers at one time, and then from there moved into senior management. Ran a district of about 250 loan officers, ran a region of about 600 loan officers, and a company of 2,300 employees. So my background is the business, and in the last 25 years, I've been so honored, Dan, to work with, as you mentioned, over 500 companies around the country and over 1 million mortgage professionals. And a lot of that has been in the trenches work, where I'm actually working with corporate clients, going in and working with their senior management team, working with their loan originators, in the pits with them, and doing big training sessions and conferences around the country. So I have a very diverse background that fortunately has kept me very plugged into the mortgage arena and alongside originators on a regular basis, hearing what's going on and keeping up to date on things. So, we can talk about any level of what the originators are dealing with, as well as what executives deal with in this marketplace. And because I had a chance to write a book for consumers about 10 years ago, I've done hundreds and hundreds of national radio programs with consumers. So I can kind of talk on that side. And we even do realtor seminars. I've done realtor webinars and seminars across the country too, on how to kind of weave into the mortgage side. So my background is really in this space for the last 37 years.
Wow, it's crazy. You say you got in '83. That's when I got in, and I didn't know there was anybody else. I thought I was the oldest dinosaur in the business. But you're right. I mean, so many things have changed, and I haven't originated since 1990. I started my company in '88 and decided to grow the company rather than my production, and I stopped. And if I had to put together a deal right now, I couldn't. So there's been a lot of changes. So you were an originator, then you got into leadership. At what time frame did you decide, okay, I'm going to get out of the day-to-day lending and start, teaching, my knowledge to everybody else?
Yeah, it was 1995. I was about 12 years in the business at the time. And really I was running a national mortgage company. And at the end of that, I was in a 1-year contract. And honestly, when the year was up, I'd had about as much of corporate America as I could take. And I always really wanted to start my own business and company. And I'd actually built a sales training system and selling system and leadership system over that period of time. I was running, massive production teams in that time. We were breaking every record there was. And it was because I had really, the one thing I've always said that I've done right in this business, if I've done nothing else right, the one thing I have done right is that I always hired people off the street. I trained them from the ground up. I helped them become top producers, but I listened to them. I listened to their feedback. Every month I would literally close my shops down, meet with all my loan officers in a big conference room, and we would talk about what's working, what's not. And by the time I'd done that for 12 years, I knew that I had created a system that I could take to other companies and say, look, if you're not producing at the level you want to, we can help you get there. And fast forward 25 years later, I've worked with 500-600 lenders and been the exclusive trainer for Lending Tree for the last 10 years, and we've done all these different things across the country as a company because the system we teach works. It's based on best practices of top producers around the nation.
And you're taking originators right off the street, so they don't have any experience in our industry.
None.
That's amazing.
I've always been a firm believer. In fact, most of my top clients that I've worked with have actually changed the way they build their businesses based on my recommendation and hired people off the street that never been in the mortgage business before and trained them from the ground up. And it's not that there isn't great people out there you can hire. It's just an easier way to enter the marketplace and to get people to do it the way you want them to do it, with your philosophies, with your products, with your processes, and not confuse the issue. So that's how most of my clients that I work with, I help them get to that point. We train those people from the ground up to do that, but I also train experienced veterans all the time. When you've trained 1 million people, you train everybody from 3 hours to 3 days to 3 months to 30 years and everything in between.
I think that's one of the issues. That's, guys with companies, it's the production curve seems shorter just to hire somebody with experience. So we take the easier route and, sell them on our vision. But I mean, you're 100% right. You're not necessarily getting somebody that's bought into your culture and your way of doing business. And, I think you can get a lot more loyalty when you're bringing them in and teaching them how. I've been trying to. We've in 32 years, we've over the last year just started hiring brand new people. But I got to tell you, it's a challenge because I don't have the specifics dialed in. So maybe you could share. So when you with somebody brand new, where do you start?
Yep. So, the first thing, I mean, obviously they've got to learn the mortgage 101 stuff. We don't do that as a company. Mortgage Champions is really about selling, leadership, and customer service training and all of that. So if they learn the basics, which some of that you can learn internally, some of that you can learn externally through companies provide that. We work with partners like On Course Learning, who used to be Training Pro, and they've got, basic courses that can teach that. What we start them with is about week 2. Once they've got a little bit of understanding the basics, we start them right out with, okay, let's begin at the beginning. And that is initiation of your lead. So if you're a consumer direct, because we work with a lot of consumer direct companies, we'll talk about and teach them how to take leads and convert those into applications. If they're a retail company, we'll teach them how to start generating opportunities through referral partners and through outside resourcing. And really focus on that for the first 30 days. So they start to get a process going of developing opportunities. Once that's done, now we can start teaching them on how to take that application and move it to a fully committed deal with that customer and start to walk them through the process. And typically within 90 days, we've got people completely trained where by their 91st day, they're doing production at the level of a lot of people I've seen been doing it for 10, 15 years.
Is that right? Do you have expectation? How do you know they're right? So you bring them on board. You're not doing the hiring, so you're relying on the company to bring people on board. At what point, in those first 90 days, are you able to determine, we got a good one?
It's funny, and I'm sure you'll agree to this. This is not rocket science. This business, I think we make it rocket science sometimes.
Yeah, that's for sure.
It's really not. I mean, I've said it for my entire career. If you think about this business, I ask the question in every seminar I've ever done of loan officers, what's our product? And they always answer it wrong. They'll say mortgages, loans, financing. I go, no, it's money. Our product is money. We literally help people improve their finances. Money is the easiest product on the planet to sell. That's why I've been in here for 37 years. So what I do with my clients, I say, look, when you're hiring loan officers, here's what I want you to hire. Hire 2 things, personality and work ethic. That's all you care about. If you can get people who are dynamic, friendly, outgoing communicators, which you can pick that up in an interview very easily. It's that gut reaction. I hired a lot of people over my career and I never went against my gut. I don't care how much you sold me in the interview. If I didn't have that feeling from the very get-go that I felt good about you from the start, because you only get one chance to make a first impression in this business. If it took you 45 minutes in an interview to convince me I should hire you, I probably shouldn't have been there 45 minutes. I probably should have been done in 45 seconds.
Right.
Because That first 3 minutes count. So look for dynamic personalities, outgoing people that work hard, that can tell you by their past performance, what did they do in school? What have they done in activities? What have they ever led in their life? If I'm in an interview with somebody, they've never really taken on a leadership role, what would make me think they're going to all of a sudden take one on within my company? I'm hiring people from the start that someday I envision to run my company. That's the way that I look at it. I'm hiring CEOs who just don't know they're CEOs yet. I think that's the key to that. And when you do that, you just train them up. I mean, it's not hard to teach them how to sell, because sales by nature is relationship and solution. That's really all that it is.
That's interesting. You say personality and work ethic. I say relationship skills and drive. I mean, that's the one thing
Same
I
thing.
look at. It's the same thing. It's, their ambition. How badly do they want to succeed in whatever it is they're doing, and that's generally pretty easy to see. The hard part I have is I like everybody, and I want to believe in everybody. And somebody comes in and they're, very, very likable, and then I find out a few months down the road that they really don't have that killer drive where they're willing to put in 10, 15 hours, a day, those first few weeks, and they don't want it bad enough, is really what I've found.
Well, and one of the things that I tell every leader in an interview, when you're interviewing and people, here's the key to that, okay? Quit talking. Let them talk. They're either going to hire themselves or hang themselves every single time. The problem is we lead the witness sometimes. we come in and so tell me about that. So tell me about that. So have you done that? And like if they don't say things, we start to fill the gaps for them, and it makes it really easy for them to look really good in that interview. I never did that. I just said, okay, tell me about yourself. And I would just sit back and let them go, because if they can't sell me, how are they going to sell my customers? This is an interview. This ought to be the best sales pitch on the planet right here.
So what's one of the common denominators you're finding with originators that they're doing that make them successful, and then the mistakes they're making that cause them problems?
Yep. So I would say the number one common denominator that I find of successful loan officers is they understand that this game is more about relationship than any other single thing. They never walk away from the power and importance of developing relationship. I teach this all the time, Dan. There's a rule I call the 9-10 rule in the mortgage business. The 9-10 rule is simply this. The average homeowner, studies have proven, is going to go through 9 mortgages in their lifetime, between the time they buy their first home and they have their last home and all of their refinances in between. It's 9 transactions on average. If I'm a loan officer, you hear the phrase all the time, loan officer for life. And frankly, half the time I hear it, I kind of laugh, because everybody talks about it, but most people don't live it, because most people don't want to do life with their customers. I've always said, if you want to be a loan officer for life, you got to be committed to them for life. That's the key to that. Right. So if you're going to establish those 9 referral or renewal opportunities, you have got to focus on relationship. You can't be transactional. Being a transactional order-taking loan officer is the number one mistake that keeps people from succeeding. And let me tell you what I'm seeing in today's marketplace. Everybody flips, not everybody, the majority of people flip to this in a high volume, low rate marketplace, because leads are up, opportunities are up, referrals are up. So what do? We rush right through the application as quick as we can. We don't build those relationships, and we wonder why we get picked off by the competition. We blame lower rates for the reason. It's not the lower rate. It's because we never took the time with that borrower to understand them, to connect with them, to break through with them, to make sure that we were establishing a different mindset. And therefore, of course, when somebody comes with a lower rate, they're going to take it, because they have no affinity to us whatsoever. So the number one trait that I see is relationship. The number one mistake that I see is lack thereof. It's order taking, transactional mindset. That'll get you killed in this business every single time. And look, let me say something. I really want to be honest about this. There are a lot of loan officers who are going to watch this and say, well, you know what? I'm rushing through and I'm closing a lot of loans. And I would say, you might be right now. But here's the problem, okay? The problem is when the market shifts, which it always does. I've been doing this, you and I have both been doing this almost 4 decades. Rates go up, rates go down, rates go up, rates go down. That's what the market does. When it shifts, that process won't work anymore. It's a broken process in a competitive marketplace. So you're giving up your secret weapon to change later. And you never take advantage of that 9 and the 9-10 rule. Now the 10, by the way, and the 9-10 rule.
That's my next question.
Stand for this. The average homeowner has access to 10 other people. So not only can you get 9 deals out of a first-time borrower if you do it right and you stay in with them, but you can also get 10 referrals from them, which converted about 35% on average in the marketplace. So that's 4 more loans on top of the one you just got. I've trained 100 loan a month producers all over the country. The top 25 producers in Scotsman's Guide every year, I've trained half of those people. I've trained 40 and 50 loan producers by the tens of thousands across the nation. And the one common thread they have is they understand the 9-10 principle. They understand it's not about getting just the deal. It's about getting all the future deals and getting those referrals on top of that. That's how you make a massive business over time. And that's where top producers come from.
Wow. So that even becomes probably more challenging in an environment like LendingTree that is so good at capturing opportunities and leads. I mean, it must be a huge competitive advantage for those loan officers to learn how to build relationships.
It is. It's amazing to me how many times I see consumer direct call center loan officers that actually have better relationships with their borrowers than retail loan officers who should have better.
They almost have to get the deal, right?
They do. They've got to compete on all levels when you're in a call center because you're 10 states away. You're never going to see this borrower. And in today's world, you can use Zoom technologies. You can get on to see your customers today, which you should be doing. You can connect in powerful ways if you know how to do it. We teach them all those connection points and how to maintain that. That's another common mistake. And you know this is sometimes loan officers, even if they do a good job on the front end, when they initiate that lead, they fall off on the back end. They turn it over to ops and it goes in that black hole. And they're like, okay, I'm only getting involved if there's problems. No, that's a mistake. You've got to stay in touch at least once a week, twice a week, because look, we're in a marketplace today that is more competitive than we've ever seen. You got trigger marketing that happens every time a borrower pulls a credit report. You've got smartphone marketing where they're getting beat up on their smartphones all day long. You've got media marketing, social media marketing, billboards, commercials. There are so many forms of marketing today that your borrower's probably going to hit 30 or 40 times before they close. And now you add to that 60 and 90-day turn times in this really elongated market. You got way too much exposure. If you don't build a solid relationship, you will be dead in this marketplace.